Congressman, you heard going into our break the president saying he would take nothing off the table when it comes to Iran, which is code for, of course, I'll use military force if I have to. He got a rousing bipartisan applause for that. After Iraq, after Afghanistan, 2 wars that all the polls show Americans have tired of, does that surprise you that he got such a warm ovation for that statement?
Well, I think they applaud the goal. I mean, that would be my goal, too. I don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. It's just the approach. I mean, if you just say that I'm ready to invade and commit an act of aggression and go in and take over that country, if nothing is off the table, when they say nothing is off the table, they're even talking about nuclear first strike. So I would think that the biggest danger is our overreaction. But if the people hear that in context, that there's other ways to do it. If people understood what sanctions meant and that maybe dealing with them in a different fashion, they take one thing off the table, and that is talking to them. And so I would think that if they understood that sanctions literally enhances the power of the Ayatollahs and undermines the Iranian people, because I have contacts with some of the Iranian people and Iranian Americans, and they like what I say and they don't like this idea of the aggressive approach because it brings out the strong nationalism, just as, 9/11 brought us, our people together in a nationalistic way. And this is what happens over there. So he needs to add something to it. But he's already taken off the table, and too many of the Republican candidates, they take it off the table that you can't even talk to them. But my argument is that when the Soviets had 30,000 of these, we didn't take talking to them off the table, or even the Chinese. We started talking to them and started trading with them, and the results were much better. So I think unfortunately they have taken something off the table, and we ought to reassess this aggressive approach to them.
If you became President of the United States, who would be your Secretary of Defense?
I haven't thought that through. I'm sure there are plenty that I could consider, but I haven't been in the mood to start picking and naming individuals.
Let me move you to the state of the economy. The president got his chance to talk to the American people and give his version of what the State of the Union is. When you look at the economy, had you been at that podium on Tuesday night, how would you have described the state of the economy?
Well, I think the state of the economy of the world, because I think we're all involved in this worldwide because it's a dollar reserve standard that created this worldwide financial crisis. We're on a precipice. We're in a crisis, and we have to understand how it came about. You have to understand monetary policy. You have to understand that you can't have excessive debt. You can't run up a debt. And this is the crisis. It's too much government, too much involvement, and that you have to cut back. But the answers aren't all that complicated either. If you do the right things, we could work our way out of this. But if we continue to do what we're doing, by both the leadership of both parties over these last 4 years, is more spending and printing money and bailing out people, believe me, we're going to go over the cliff. And I think that's what we have to work to try to prevent. So the economy is in shambles, but we can correct it by just sound economic policies, which are not complicated.
And let me turn you to another domestic policy issue, and that is you had been raising money lately on your website on the notion of ending the TSA. Most people know those as the guards at the airport that, pat you down and, go through your stuff. Your son obviously had a run-in with some TSA folks when he was trying to get on a plane. If you got rid of the TSA, what would you put in its place?
Well, it shouldn't be government. The people who protect very dangerous chemical plants, they're private sources. They have their police guards, they have their fences, and they have their security, and they do a very good job. The assumption that the government has to do this is the wrong assumption. I voted against the Department of Homeland Security and the TSA, and it's a bureaucratic monster. It totally voids the concept of the Fourth Amendment. Searches and prodding and poking, with no permission, and they trap us into it. There's no way you can travel if you don't do it. So I've said, when you look at some of these pictures of prodding groin areas and breast areas and all this, and old women having to take their clothes off, if we as a people are so complacent that we can look at that and say, oh, that's okay, they're making us safe, it doesn't doesn't make us safe. It undermines our liberties, and is a much better way of giving us security at the airports than accepting the bureaucrats and the politicians in Washington. That is totally unacceptable from my viewpoint.
Congressman Ron Paul, thank you for joining us today. We will see you along down the road.